Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Maximum Growth Live. My name is Jay Ruane, CEO of FirmFlex, your social media marketing agency for lawyers, as well as CEO of Ruane Attorneys, a civil rights and criminal defense firm down in the great state of Connecticut, our Constitution state, but down in Del Boca Vista in Florida, still enjoying the warm weather is my man Seth Price of Price Benowitz, DC, Maryland, Virginia, and South Carolina, as well as the mind, the brains behind Blue Shark Digital, your SEO for law firm. Seth, how's your week going this week?
It's going good. Very tired. It's been a long week, and good. And we got a couple weeks of sunshine left, trying to maximize every minute of it.
Well, you got a couple weeks of sunshine, but we're in the midst of getting hit with another storm here in the Northeast. So it's just kicking butt. But we've come off a great run of shows. We had all of the stuff, people talking about coaching, and we ended it last week with the Guild. And this week we're doing a little bit of a transition as we get into a new subject. And the new subject this week is outsourcing, offshoring, and virtual assistants. And we couldn't have a better guest to have on our first show talking about that. And the guest is Sandy Van. Now, I know you know Sandy from a lot of legal events. Sandy and I have become friends. I actually went and visited her out in Las Vegas, long before Corona. It seems like forever ago. And Sandy is great because she has a PI firm. She's got a mass torts component. She also runs her own agency of VAs because she decided to keep growing and growing. And Sandy's really interesting because she takes ideas and money and turns it into capital. I've been in a Slack group with her for a while now, and her ideas are just phenomenal for growing your firm. She has this incessant desire to grow, and she's done some wonderful things. What are your thoughts? Do you use any VAs yet?
Yeah, no. So yes and no. Yes, and again, it's funny because the word VA I don't really love. I like overseas teams. That's my philosophy. And so on the marketing side, any non-client facing, any widget that can be replicated overnight as a technology component, I love. Whether the marketing or the law firm side, where I have sort of not done and where I'm enamored and want to see what she's doing is I feel that the law firm sausage making has been more old school and has not leveraged people. So there are areas that I feel like I'm very advanced in, and there are areas where I feel like I'm old school and could really use a lot of help. So Sandy's been an inspiration. I mean, what she has been able to scale, there are people, you do what you love. I love the optimizing of websites and getting ROI for an investment on paid search and things like that. She has figured out how to get hundreds of people overseas to row in the same direction, and that's not nothing.
That's not nothing for sure. One of the things that's really interesting to me is I've talked a little bit about with you my own journey into starting to use overseas help, and how we've bombed out a couple. We had some people that were great in the first week or two, and then they just dropped off the planet. We've had two who we didn't have in Honduras now, who are like rock stars. Like, I mean, I wish I could have them in my office. I'm glad they're there. They're happy being where they are. I even reached out and said, I have an aunt in El Salvador. Maybe we can find people that we can set up down there with you, because it just seems like it's a problem because you're not getting those touch points when you have the VA, when you have the offshore or overseas help. People could just disappear. We had somebody ghost on us.
Right. So I'm trying to play with my intake team. So we similarly we're trying two different experiments. One is somebody who lived in the U.S. who sounds like the girl next door, woman next door, and the other is somebody who's never been to the U.S. and wanting to see which skill sets we fit best. I'm just so leery of going client facing. I'm sure I'll rip the Band-Aid off at some point, but anything behind the scenes I'm looking to. So let's get Sandy out here. I want to hear, make sure we give her enough time.
Okay, folks, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Of course, we are sponsored by Maximum Lawyer Media, home of the Maximum Lawyer Guild, which you heard about last week on our show. So stay tuned. When we come back, we'll have Sandy Van of the Van Law Firm. Hi, I'm Jay Ruane, one of the founders of FirmFlex and a practicing attorney for over 20 years. Anyone who knows me knows how my firm runs on the systems we create, and it has allowed us to flourish, even in tough times. I spent years and hundreds of thousands of dollars until I finally figured out a way to engage my audience and drive top-of-mind awareness with social media. And what did I do once I figured it all out? I built a system for it, and now you can put that system to work for you. You see, we took the hard part, creating the content and finding the images, and made it foolproof. Every day you will have curated social media topics to post designed to make your firm constantly remind your audience about your firm, what you do, and how you can help. And the best part? You don't even need to hire a dedicated social media person to do this for you. In fact, you don't even need to hire anyone new. We designed the system to make it easy for you to delegate to your receptionist, assistant, or paralegal and have them execute solid social media for you in just 5 minutes a day. It's like having a content writer, researcher, and graphics designer at a fraction of the price it would cost to hire in-house. Sign up today for the Social Super System and start building your brand where your clients already are, on social media.
In this world today, if you want to grow your business, you want to grow your firm, you want to take on more cases and make a bigger impact, you have to have a digital blueprint. Statistically, throughout the time that we've been working with Blue Shark Digital, our law firm, the Atlanta Divorce Law Group, grew over 1,400%. They truly understand where we're headed and how we want to get there. I have a team in Blue Shark Digital that I feel like has my back.
And we're back. We're back with our good friend Sandy Van of the Van Law Firm in Nevada and Washington, if I'm not mistaken, as well as the owner of Legal Support Help, which is a staffing firm of VAs for lawyers. Sandy, thanks for being on the program today. I first want to start with asking you this question. When did you start your law firm, and when did you hire your first VA?
2012 is when I started my law firm. I started using VAs in 2008.
Okay, how did you start using them? Okay. So you were very familiar with the real estate, using VAs through the real estate business, and when you started your law firm, you immediately thought that would be a great way to expand your workforce?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. So we started off on easy tasks.
Gotcha. Now, what is Easy Tasks? Explain to the audience what Easy Tasks is.
Getting police reports, getting medical records, requests, sending in letters of rep, doing lien verifications or reductions.
Okay. So in your situation, did you hire in-country people first, or did you start with the VAs when you started with your law firm?
I had a few people in-house, maybe 8 people in-house, and then I had like 5 VAs.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about, because one of the challenges with hiring a VA is that you need to sort of have systems in place first, because you're not going to have them in your office to train. How do you deal with that at the beginning of engaging a virtual assistant?
First you have to have systems in place to hire the right people. It took me a long time to figure that out. And now we've started on the EOS model, the Entrepreneur Operating System by Tina Wakeman. And we have an accountability chart and like an organizational chart, and then we ask the managers of each department to determine what their core processes are. Because the Pareto principle says that, 20% of your stuff is going to, produce 80% of your outcome. So each manager decides like what's the core process of their team. And then we created like tetras and courses to train all the virtual assistants. So, you need to, what I would do is have 2 people create that process. So let's say it's a demand letter, and it would be your 2 case managers, right? Your pre-litigation case managers. So have Anna create it, and then Bob look it over. Have Bob look over, create subrogation, and then have Anna add to it. And then just have them delegate it to them so that they can create it, because they're the ones that are in the weeds and stuff doing it. and then you can create like a Tetra. I know that your brother does like a Wikipedia that doesn't have the monthly fee, but and make sure that you have an index to your Tetra and a table of contents to your Tetra or Wikipedia, whichever way that they decide to go. So we created an index. I had it up here. I don't know where I put it. Oh, it's not here anymore. But you can create an index for your Tetra, kind of like, why are we doing this? If they know why, if people know why, they're better, they understand things better. Like, oh, I'm doing this demand letter this way so that we don't get indexing information out there. We make sure that we don't put anything that's adverse to our client in there. We want to make sure that we get money from the insurance company because they're not just going to come out and give us money. So you need to give them the why. You need to say this is how it's done. Sometimes you need pictures in there, videos, because people may learn differently. They might have, I read, so I'd rather read things than go through a whole video. I don't want to go through a video of an hour and find 2 sentences that I wanted to keep. So some people like watching a video, some people like pictures and screenshots, some people like to read.
I notice a lot of webinars and such. Sandy is there, but it's clearly Sandy's people taking notes to bring you the nuggets.
Right. Like, so I can learn like TBI in like 20 minutes. Like I'll have like all these webinars of like, an hour here, an hour there, 4 hours. And I'm like, I just want to read them like 20 minutes. That's
So
all I want to
Sandy,
do.
let me, before you jump in, Seth, I have something. Sandy said something early on in her last answer, and I want to dive a little deeper in it because I think a lot of people here might be sort of in the place that you were. And you said you had a lot of problems with the VAs early on before you figured it out. Let's expand that a little. Let's talk about some of the problems that you found early on so that our people, our listeners, our audience won't make those same mistakes. So where do you think you had? Give me 2 big mistakes that you made early on that our people can learn from so that they don't make those mistakes.
Not having my core values done, and that's something that we did recently.
Okay, tell me about that. Why?
We created our core values, and had we created them earlier, and I can go get our core values. We created our core values, and then we found that some people just did not fit into the core values. And had we had them defined earlier, I'm like, hey, this is why you're getting fired. It's nothing, you just don't show up. You're not that hardworking or whatever, right?
Is that a core value, or is that just accepting a higher level? I mean, core value is sort of the nuance. There could be somebody who's great but doesn't hit your core values potentially, versus somebody who's not showing up. They're not showing up. You don't need core values to fire them.
I just liked it defined. So we defined it. We gave examples of it, good examples, bad examples. We actually wrote up our own little definition. We had our blogger rewrite it and edit it. And had I had that in the beginning, it'd be like, look, you're not you see, you don't fit into these little boxes. You're not getting check marks on them. And, that would have really helped. Things like that. We pay them with Veeam. Having enough to hire and things like that. We have a hub staff, which we check all the time now. And hub staff just monitors their screenshots and things like that. And but the core values is really important.
So I'm sure
it's not like some kind of, it's more objective.
It would be helpful maybe they would get in the comments some of these. These are great softwares. I've always used a different one, but like every time, always looking at what is the best software. Because I assume, Sandy, thing you and I have talked about offline a lot is making. It sounds like you is not just like hiring X number of people, but you have pyramided to allow yourself to have supervision, so that you're not just saying, hey, here's X dollars an hour, but you have somebody making sure you're getting those X dollars an hour from the person.
Yes, we also, with the EOS system, we created a scoreboard, and every department will have their own scoreboard. So for example, each department may have their own communication, including how many demands they sent out, or how many cases they got closed from subrogation or whatever, or how many things of property damage they did every week or whatever, So each department will have their own little subsection of numbers. And then that manager will tell me whether or not it's going well or not. So back to the index for Tetra, you need something like the title, like how to calendar. Is it added to our table of contents? So you have to have a checklist, right? Is there a directory to it? Why we do it this way? Do you want to include some checklists or documents like, hey, here's the hospital HIPAA or whatever, or here's a checklist on how to settle a case. Any documents that you need, you'd have to have the step-by-step instructions, the pictures, and the videos.
Did you put that together yourself, or was this something that you had, like, you give them something and then they run with it, or who actually physically puts that together when you're starting? Because that's a lot of people we speak to, a lot of people watching this are like, hey, I want to try my first. And they can call you and they can have you get them a person. But somebody who's saying, hey, do I need to come with systems, or will this person build the systems that I then tweak?
I think it's pretty easy. Loom is a great software. You can just record yourself doing it and then have them write down the steps. And if I was to go back, I would, because people have like, hey, can we buy your system? I'm like, oh, just the settlement disbursements took, just me personally, I was sitting there one day, I'm like, I'm going to just develop this. And it was like 4 hours, 4 hours of my time. So I'm not selling my system, but you can just record how you're doing it and then have them go back. And I would change everything to like John Doe and Jane Doe. If I was to go back, I would not have, because I have like some client stuff on my calendar and the videos and pictures with the client stuff on it. So now we've gone back and redone it so that it's all John and Jane Doe.
Was there an economy?
But you could have, sorry.
You obviously have dozens, if not scores of VAs at this point. Was there a critical mass where it started to work for itself, where you could have VAs managing VAs, so that you would have less direct reports, and that your people in the U.S. would have a direct person who would then manage people overseas, or are all the overseas people reporting back to the U.S. office?
No, some of our managers are VAs. And I'd say that it might have been last year or the year before. I went on vacation to Italy, and then I came back and I'm like, I'm going to just do less. So then I figured out how to do less, and now I do way less. Like I sleep all day sometimes. I'll watch my stocks all day. I'm out and about. So, it's great.
So then are you using VAs in your personal life as well? And is that something that you would recommend?
Yes. You
can
use
tell
VAs
us
for everything.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how you use that and how they talk to each other and get things done?
I have a long list of things, because someone asked me one time, like, what a VA can do for you. They can plan your travel. You have to have SOPs for that, or they'll put you in a really bad neighborhood, in like Washington and Washington, D.C., but we fixed some of those things, like, hey,
thank God for the 24-hour airline cancellation policy that came out a few years ago. So no matter how much they screw up, you have 24 hours to get your money back.
Right. But they've done PPP for me, helped me with PPP. They've helped me apply for bars in different states. They've helped me doctor's appointments, refill my medication, set up my hair appointments, call me an Uber, call AAA and sit on hold for me because I've got a dead battery or something. They're amazing,
Do you keep your VA, obviously, do you have teams that are overnight versus teams that are day side? How do you make that distinction?
Yeah, how do you deal with the time difference?
Yeah. We have an after hours team of maybe 15 after hours, I think. And they have a check-in place where they check in with me and say what they're doing, what they're accomplishing, and what they've done at the end of the night. They'll be like, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to check my Slack messages. I'm going to be buying this. I'm going to be getting quotes for our printing or whatever. Or I'm going to be watching, Seth's CLE on brain injury and telling you all about it.
Well, that's a really interesting thing is tasking a VA to watch some CLEs and give you the notes and the nuggets. I mean, I can imagine you can get a lot of good stuff really quickly by having VAs, and then they're getting trained in that area, and you can rely on them for more and more of your marketing stuff. Do you have people that are working on your marketing as well, or is it all sort of legal task stuff?
They're all working on our marketing. We're even thinking about having them do our day in the life editing videos.
Wow.
So we'll create the video and they'll edit our day in the life videos for us. We gave them an example one and we're like, this is what we want it to look like. And, we don't want to spend $25,000 on one.
Yeah.
What have you found the average lifespan of the VAs? Do they stay with you for a period of time and then move on? Have you been able to keep people for like how many break and how many, stay with you for the duration?
Most of them will stay for a long period of time because we do give them insurance, and I have some that I'm sure that they could be making more elsewhere. They just stay with us because they like our culture. Some have left, they thought that the grass was greener and some have wanted to come back. Some have left to do other things. Like one of them got a job nursing in the United States. I'm like, good for you. I'm glad. Be careful in the Bronx, but I'm happy for you. So, but some of them have been with us for years. They're even longer than any of my employees.
Wow, that's awesome. What roles do you think are the easiest to fill with a VA? Because everyone comes with different skill sets. And then what roles do you think are the most challenging to fill with a VA?
Easiest would be medical record requests, lien verifications, lien reductions, saving documents, because we get an inordinate amount of faxes that come in and we actually scan all our mail in and then they save it and they organize it for us. Like, hey, if it's an important mail, then they will alert the case manager or the attorney that's on the case. If it's not important, like they don't need to know about every single bill that comes in, So there's like certain tags and then it'll alert me that there's an important mail or someone on the team. Harder things would be like calendaring, subrogation, litigation tasks. They actually draft our complaints and do our discovery for us. Our paralegals tweak it to get it finished and everything. And then case managing. We even have 3 case managers that run it.
Sandy, you as you've grown, you've been adding litigators to handle the court stuff, and they're coming from outside your firm, having worked at other firms. Have you had any instances where those lawyers have come in and been like, well, I don't like to do it this way because I've never worked with a VA before? And what is like the adoption for these lawyers when they start to see how your systems and the way you approach things are so much better? How have they taken to it? Nobody's really ever said anything like we don't like our VAs or anything. Most of them love our VAs. They're like, oh my gosh, you got them for a steal. I'm like, I'm actually paying very good wages. I hope you know, it's not child labor sweatshop prices or anything. They're getting paid pretty well. So yeah, and they're very grateful to have a job in, especially the pandemic. And some of them have just stayed with us because of the stuff that they've learned. Like, that thing about recording stuff, it's not just CLEs. Like, let's say you downloaded the YouTube videos or you downloaded Udemy videos. You could download like everything on whatever it could be, Zapier, and then upload it to Otter AI and then screenshot everything and learn everything a lot faster. Now, do you take that stuff and you throw it into your knowledge base so that in future versions of Sandy Van who take over running the law firm have that as a resource to go to? Is that something that anybody in the firm could access? So say I was a lawyer at your firm and I wanted to learn about Zapier, I have the access to get that stuff that you've put together for everybody?
Right. It's in different little sections like, hey, this is all on TBI, or this is all on trucking, or these are minor impact soft tissue, or this is all on social media marketing or whatever. And it's in our drive, but then linked to things in our Tetra, like sectioned off. And then we have different banks in our FileVine. So there might be like a motion bank or a correspondence bank or a CLE bank. So we may have links in there. So it might be the video, a link to the video, a link to the notes, their little tidbits, and then a link to the transcription, and a link to the screenshot of the slides.
Wow.
So that's how the index would be broken down.
That's really powerful. I mean, I can imagine that you could do a deep dive on pretty much any topic related to personal injury now in your systems. So I can see why lawyers in personal injury would want to buy your stuff, because it sounds like you have a tremendous value there. But I want to talk to you about starting your own VA company, because when you started this, you didn't. You were outsourcing to VAs through other agencies, I'm assuming. And then at some point you said, you know what, I'd like to actually build Legal Support Help, which is your company that deals with VAs. Tell us a little bit about that journey and how you decided to get into that business as well.
Well, I'd read The 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss, and then I'd read Outliers. And in that book, they talk about this Harry Jude attorney that nobody would hire because he was not white and blonde and blue-eyed. And he was doing everything that walked through the door law. And all of a sudden, he started doing mergers and acquisitions, and the tides turned, and mergers and acquisitions was a thing. You know, I was using VAs a long time ago in 2007, 2008, because I couldn't afford. You know, I was doing real estate and I was doing short sales, and the short sales were not closing. They were not short. They were taking like 2-3 years to get paid out. Oh. So I was like, I'm sick and tired of working so hard. So I hired my first VA. And like now it's like the times have changed. And I'm like, look, that knowledge that I've had, that 10,000 hours or whatever. And I decided to open the VA company. And I looked at the math and the arbitrage spread and said, hey, I could do this. And I'm sure that there's other attorneys that need it, that need someone on the ground running that, you know, can help them with certain things.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Seth, but I've actually said, you know, if I were to get into PI, you know, this would be one of the resources that I would turn to try to fill those roles without having to actually bring the people in-house, because of some of the benefits of scale that you can get by going to outsourcing through VA. Seth, did you have a question?
No, I was just thinking, like, you know, you mentioned some of the low-hanging fruit like a PI shop might use, but some of it, you know, some of the things I've struggled with personally is with a legacy shop. And it's like, it's not like we're that old, right? The firm's only 12 years old. But when you haven't put VAs into certain positions, have you, I love the fact that you sort of built it with them for the most part. Any advice for people that aren't using them but already have infrastructure about how you scale and put those in? Again, it's not like we aren't using them. Like on the marketing side, I have 80 people doing tasks for me every night, all different things. So I don't call them VAs, but we have a team doing those, and I have individual VAs doing specific items and reports. But as a law firm, I found that's actually the place I found the hardest. Partially, we have a solution for medical records, but what are some of the ways you can sort of first dip your toe in if you're not used to using them within a law firm practice?
There's probably some things that your case managers or your paralegals don't want to do, that they could be doing something else. Like you probably get discovery propounded on you. And then they're like, we can't give you the Word doc because there's metadata on it. So now you're like, okay, VA, instead of me spending my paralegal, how much ever you pay your paralegal, $50,000, $75,000 or whatever.
Understood. But in those cases, this is where I've struggled. I agree. That would be genius. And we do some of that, but that's not the systematized stuff in the Tetra, right? That's the one-off project. And then you run into how do you, so I love it. And I'm sort of experimenting right now. I've forced my team to work with VAs, even if I'm paying and time is falling on the floor. I don't like that. I'm not wasting anything. But the idea is sometimes it's, as you're saying, until you sort of know, oh, there's a resource there, let me send it. It's sometimes there's some things you can plan out and some things you don't really even know that you need until you're like, oh man, I wish I had a place to send it. Oh, I do have a place to send it. And which comes first? Because if there's not a person to send it to, you can't actually do that, right?
Well, there's a list of stuff that our VAs do. It's on vatasklist.com, and they do stuff for business lawyers, family lawyers, estate planning, all types of areas of law. They help us. We do mass torts and personal injury. So they've helped us with that. They've helped some of our doctors out with their stuff, and the medical record companies and stuff like that, because they've needed people to call appointments and stuff. So I'm sure you could find something. And they've helped, some of ours help with translation and calling our clients. Our litigators were like so busy, and I was like watching the reports for the communication. And then you could lose one case because your litigator or your case manager is too busy to call the client. And so we hired these people called, we call them like customer care people. And they just call the client, like, I want you to sandwich it. 1 month attorney Joe calls, and then 1 month Daniel calls, the VA. And just says, hey, and he's like tasked out. We've got these scripts or whatever, like, hey, we sent your demand letter. We're waiting 30 days before we get the response. Or we're waiting on the subrogation lien. That may take a while, but we'll let you know when we get a response. Or we've already sent it out for service, or whatever it is that is scripted. Do you have any questions for the attorney Joe? And they do that. So you'll find something for them. There's plenty that they can do.
That's really interesting that you say that, because one of the biggest problems for lawyers is lack of communications. Like 90% of bar complaints is lack of communication, and it's often because the lawyers are busy. So by taking a proactive approach with using VAs, it's really a solution that you can identify problem clients, identify problem areas, and solve those things before you get to the bar complaint phase, or you lose that case that is money that you've worked up that's going out the door. So that's a genius way to use VAs and sort of that happiness role.
How do you find do you have two categories of people that are forward facing where their English is good enough versus those that are not? How do you make a distinction as to who you're allowed to speak to clients?
So some things are not value added.
Yeah.
Huh? Okay, so some things are not value added.
Price point for people who have these skills to communicate with U.S. clients versus those that might be doing data behind the scenes.
Right. So someone that does not speak to people would get paid less in my company. So we do have people who have really great English and really great Spanish. And we have some people that are chasing leads for us in the middle of the night, even, because I don't want to be woken up at 11 at night. So I have those people, and I'd pay them U.S. wages even, if I don't have to get woken up at 11 o'clock and they can just sign that person, I'd rather have that happen. I think that there's some things that are value add. If I go to Joe's Stone Crab, they may use not the nicest napkins. They may not use the nicest toilet paper or the nicest ketchup. But if their seafood doesn't taste good or their steak doesn't taste good, then I'm not going to go back to Joe's Stone Crab. So some things don't matter. If you're calling the police department saying, hey, this police report ready, or you're calling for medical records, I really don't care if your English isn't that great. But if you're speaking to an adjuster or you're speaking to a client, then I want your English good.
I love that. Yeah, we ran into a problem with that, but with our first failed attempt with a VA, because we were getting state employees here in Connecticut who refused to talk to people with accents. I can't understand them, and they would hang up. And we were dealing with people who, were insulated in their jobs, so we had to transition to find people with better English, because that was necessary for us to be able to accomplish those tasks. I thought they spoke just fine, but, I grew up in the hood myself.
I would say that you should also get a line for them, because our phones were getting backed up because we didn't have a phone line for them, like the medical records department. So we got a phone line for the medical records department, the disbursement department, the mass tort department. Those are run by VAs. Our mass torts, like hundreds and hundreds of cases are run by VA. And I would also have a line, a channel on your Slack for angry clients. Okay, so when they call in and they're angry, I want to be notified of that angry client and why they're angry. So in some of the credit card companies, collection companies, they have software where they can tell if you're like raising your voice, if you've been cursing, or some kind of artificial intelligence. We don't have that at Van Law Firm. We just have people that answer the phones, and they Slack and tell me if there's an angry client on the phone.
You do all of your intake through VAs?
Mainly through VAs. We do have some case managers that will go out if necessary. We'll meet you at Starbucks.
No. Somebody, the first call to Sandy, if you've been injured, is that going directly overseas?
It may be going overseas. It may be going in-house. We have maybe 3 in-house people that can handle an intake call, and then we have a lot of not in-house.
So let me ask you a question about that. When you okay, so say you've decided, okay, we want to add a new person to our arsenal of VAs. Are you picking them to train them in one particular area and then cross-training them afterwards, or are you saying you're going to live medical records for however long you're with us, and you may go up in the medical records silo, but you're staying in that silo, or is there movement back and forth? Because I think there's some people out there who might want to think, okay, so I get my first one, that's going to lead me to a second and a third, and I want to give them an idea of the sort of the march of progress when you start getting VAs in, like you've been able to accomplish.
Well, sometimes they do just stay in medical records. Sometimes we start giving them something else. We might give them medical summaries or something. And then if we have someone that's like great, we may move them to subrogation. We sometimes have these like, wow, like where did we find you? Can we clone you people, right? And we may move them up. Like we have senior callers those are like the people that help the case managers. They're the ones that are sandwiching and calling the adjusters and saying, oh, well, did you get our demand letter? And do you have an offer to present or anything? Or is liability accepted? Are you fixing my client's car or whatever? And these people are so good, and they've been with our case managers for so long that they can now manage cases. So once in a while, we'll have someone, and I try to just hire people that can move up. Like we want our receptionists to move up to admin assistant one day, or admin assistants to become case managers. Our admin assistants become paralegals or junior paralegals or calendaring clerk or whatever, law clerks to be attorneys. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Seth, do you have one final question?
No, yeah. So when you pyramid, how many VAs do you end up having supporting a given attorney? Like how many attorneys are you running in-house, and how many VAs do you have backing up an attorney?
We have little pods. So we have the attorney and a paralegal, and then we also have a discovery team. So we have 2 people that just draft discovery. Then we have a VA for that team. So that VA is doing all of their drafting for them. So if you need a complaint drafted, early case conference documents, anything like that, joint case conferences, the discovery, shells and everything. And when they have to answer a discovery, they're typing it up. So we have 1 VA per attorney that does that. Then they have some shared VAs that update our spreadsheet matrix, and 2 calendaring VAs that help calendar with like our calendaring clerks. And so, I think someone at e-files helps them e-file.
So
and I get some people to save things and get medical records and custodian records.
So this is fascinating to me. Let me ask a follow-up about that. So are lawyers having a VA work for them 40 hours in a week? Like they always know? Or are these people working like, hey, we're going to task you with a series of jobs and you get it done and then report back to us, that type of thing?
Well, they are working 40 hours, and you can really just give them things and then come back, right? So you're handing things off to them, and then you might go do something else. You might go do a deposition, then you can come back, right?
Yes.
So both, I guess, but they are working 40 hours.
And they're working a 40-hour schedule, like 9 to 5, like that lawyer works, so that they're always available to them. And then the maybe the document people, they work 40 hours, but they could be off depending on the timing that you need them.
Correct.
That's awesome. I mean, Seth, I mean, from my perspective, being able to have people that you can task with things to do and get the work back, regardless if they're in the next hallway or across the world, having a VA sounds like a great way to sort of accelerate the growth of your firm. Did you have a
right?
Question?
But and I think the genius of what Sandy has done, not only with the business that people can go for a plug and play solution, but what she's done for herself is. It is much harder to do as a one-off. You can have a one-off, but the synergies come when you have that team, because my guess is the same person who's answering the phones who has great spoken English may not be your drafter, may not be the person who's inexpensive behind the scenes. And And as you scale, you're able to get people to their sweet spot, and that you're hiring for those different positions. Somebody who can write, very, very different. Somebody who can speak. Who do you need US time? Who do you need overnight? Your head starts to explode when you think about the permutations.
Yeah,
Great.
I mean, you could easily ramp up and have 200 VAs doing every discrete thing, but starting with one and getting them to do the thing that really removes a lot of the headaches of your plate. And Sandy, I love the idea of having somebody who's a caller and checking in with clients and that type of thing. And I want to implement that in my office for sure, because I think those touch points are so valuable for getting referrals back from clients, keeping client satisfaction high, getting reviews. I think that as your first move, that might be something that's worth considering bringing in a VA to do, just because it eliminates all those inbound calls. And so if all your incoming calls now are just new clients, because all of your existing clients are getting calls regularly, it could put you in a position where you can really sort of task your intake team properly, don't you think?
I would segment that, because we were going to open a call center, and we kind of have a mini call center now. And after speaking to a bunch of call center owners, because I interviewed a bunch of call center owners, they said, Sandy, you need to segment it, just reception as reception, and then intake as intake. And like, personal injury, single event cases, and then we have a mass tort intake. But they're cross-trained somewhat, but, so the reception can't answer the phone. And when I implemented the callers, it was after we had hired this really bad attorney that didn't call my client for a week, that we had massaged this case for 2 years and we were filing suit. He didn't call a client for a week and we lost that case. And that was really tough. Every single time a nice car drives by, I think of this attorney and how I'd like him to be hit by a bus. It was a really big case. Like, the meds were worked up and everything, and we lost this case. And I'm like, dude, I could hire like 10 of these people and I'd still break even. I'd still be ahead from him losing this one case. So
wow.
There's a story. You're not perfect, but imagine losing a case that's like $500,000.
Yeah,
I could hire a lot of VAs for 5 years, probably.
Exactly. And that's really what this is all about. I want to thank you for coming on here today, Sandy. One of the things that's important for everybody to hear is they see people's success and they don't necessarily see all the trials and tribulations that go behind it. And you've been really honest and vocal, and I appreciate that. And I know our audience and Seth certainly does so well. So thank you so much for coming on Maximum Growth Live. Folks, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Seth and I will be back to wrap up the show. Thanks again to Sandy Van from Van Law Firm in Nevada and Washington, as well as LegalSupportHelp.com for all your VA needs. Thanks again, Sandy. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks.
One. Well, Seth, I'm starting to go full into the idea of outsourcing my work and getting some overseas help. What did you learn from Sandy's interview?
Well, look, I've been speaking to her a long time, and I feel like today you get some insight. It's not easy, and Sandy is great about presenting as if like this. That what she has done is a lot of hard work. I'm sure, things that work, things that don't work, and to see how she segmented this stuff out and created those teams, remarkable. I'm inspired to continue down that journey. I think COVID has given all of us the opportunity to see what we can do, because we're not feeling and touching people anyway. So that security blanket is gone. The Band-Aid's ripped off. I'd like to see if we can integrate some of that. People like Keith Givens in Dothan, Alabama, and Mike Papantoni in Pensacola, Florida. You're outsourcing to cheap labor there. I feel like not only now do we have a national playground to choose from, but an entire globe. And depending on skill sets that you need, it's a pretty cool ride that we have coming up.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We've got one young woman who's in Honduras who's helping us now, and all of my top line paralegals are like, "This girl has it. She's good. We want to keep her. Let's elevate her already because we think we can get her to do great things." And that's really the wonderful thing, is that we can find people at a rate that you wouldn't necessarily be able to pay here in the States for great work, and everybody wins.
I think the jury is still out. It's not. This is not. Look, I don't think I'm ever getting to where Sandy is. I like U.S. labor for many things. I may be old school. There is an advantage to certain things, and that there's a certain, if you had like the flip side. Not that there are not plenty of issues with domestic labor, but I'm a long way before. I'd like it to be support for those people for the tasks that need to be held open overnight to make that a 24-hour office. Nothing kills you more on a weekend when you know that work could be done, but that your 9 to 5 people aren't getting that done. And if the people are starting Sunday here where you have production going, how much happier are you going to be?
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. One of the things I want to look to is having overseas people help us with intake on the weekends, because that's where we're not getting coverage now, and I think we can place people in there. But great stuff today, folks. I want to thank you all for participating with us and being part of our show. Of course, you can always watch this show as well as any of our back catalog by visiting us on our Maximum Growth Live page on Facebook. You can catch our podcast syndicated through the Maximum Lawyer podcast or on our standalone. I would invite you to join me as we talk systems in our Systemizing Your Law Firm for Growth Facebook group, which is available if you are an attorney. And then join us back again next week for another edition of Maximum Growth Live. I am Jay Ruane. He is Seth Price of Blue Shark Digital. I'm Firm Flex, social media marketing. We got everything that you need here, man. We got systems. We got experience over there more than over here. We got SEO. We got social media. We got everything you need to grow your firm. So thanks for joining us here today and with us always. Seth, any final words?
No, just have a great weekend, and I'll see you back next week.
Next week, spring training, pitchers and catchers report. We're getting back to basics, back to baseball. Looking forward to it, folks. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.